Hey there, it's Rick Probst and Faith Talk today. Hey, listen, a major Supreme Court decision March 31st is still making headlines across the country, and it's one that impacts families, counselors, and the First Amendment. In an 8-1 ruling, you may have heard this, the Supreme Court struck down Colorado's law restricting certain counseling conversations with minors, saying that the law regulated speech based on viewpoint. Joining us today, Jeff Johnston. He's a culture and policy analyst with Focus on the Family, and it's a pleasure to have him. Jeff, how are you?
Hey, Rick, I'm doing well. It's good to be with you.
You know, when this came across my desk, I didn't know it was there. I mean, I had no warning, and I started reading and digging into it. I'm like, wow, this is really something important, not just for Colorado, but for other cases in other states. Let's get the skinny on the whole thing. What's this all about?
Well, in 2019, Colorado passed a law saying it was illegal for licensed counselors to talk to minors about leaving homosexuality or leaving transgenderism. So if you were a parent with, say, a 4-year-old boy who doesn't like being a boy and wants to be a girl, you couldn't take your son to a counselor to help him embrace his bodily reality, the fact that he is a boy and that's who he is. So the law said you could only push people in one direction. And a local counselor, actually here in Colorado Springs, challenged the law. Her name's Chiles. And it went to lower courts and then to this 10th Circuit and finally to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court told the lower courts, you've decided this wrongly. This is really viewpoint discrimination because you can only help children in one direction. And it's a violation of First Amendment rights because Kaylee Childs does not practice medicine. She's not prescribing drugs. She's not forcing kids to do anything. There's no coercion involved. All she uses is talk therapy. And clients, we believe at Focus on the Family that clients should have the right to help determine the course of their therapy. And so in the case I mentioned, like a 4-year-old, the parents would be the one bringing the child to therapy and helping determine the course. And the therapist would talk to the child and talk to the parents and help them in their relationship and help the child understand why he wants to be a girl maybe, and what's driving that, what's behind that. But these therapy bans keep counselors from even exploring those issues with clients.
This is a monumental rule, isn't it? Was it a sticky wicket, as they say, or was it an easy, hands down, here we go, it's done?
Well, it was pretty hands down, except for one justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Wrote a dissenting opinion, but 8 justices concurred and said, no, this is clearly viewpoint discrimination. So even 2 liberal justices, Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan, said, no, this is a First Amendment violation because the state is telling counselors what they can and can't say. And it's telling counselors you can only help minors in one direction. So I gave the example of a little 4-year-old boy, but let's say you were a 16-year-old teenage boy and you were struggling at looking with gay pornography and you didn't want that. You're a Christian maybe, and you want to move it another direction and you want to live according to your faith. Under Colorado's law, a counselor couldn't help you do that. He couldn't help you change your identity or your behaviors or your thinking related to gay pornography or homosexuality. And it's interesting, too, because there have been a number of cases across the U.S., as you mentioned. There's about 20-some states that ban therapy for unwanted homosexuality or transgenderism. So this case affects legal cases in all those other states. It affects the laws in those states. Now, I know more liberal states are going to push back against this. But the decision stands, and it is viewpoint discrimination for states to have these laws.
Now, help me here, Jeff. Jeff Johnston, Focus on the Family, Culture and Policy analyst. Help me here in my ignorance. So this is just for Colorado. The other states are kind of fighting it out for themselves. Will they as well possibly go to the Supreme Court for each other state?
Well, those circuit courts that decided that these laws censoring free speech are acceptable, they're going to have to look at this new decision, because this decision does set precedent for these other courts, and they may have to reverse their decisions. Some states may decide just not to enforce their laws.
Yeah.
It's going to take a while for all of it to play out and for us to see what happens in different states. And it's not just the 20 some states that have these laws. There's 100 different municipalities, cities and counseling, or cities and counties that have banned therapy for unwanted homosexuality or transgenderism, and they're all censoring free speech. So it's going to take a while for all these cases and laws to play out. We'll have to see what happens, but it's a really great decision by the Supreme Court.
Now, you've probably obviously been keeping your eye on this, maybe with your scorecard to see what's going up. Was it a surprise to you that it was 8-1?
It was a little bit surprising that the liberal justices Kagan and Sotomayor decided the way they did.
Right.
But in this case, where a state says you can talk about an issue this way, but you can't talk about it another way, that's clearly viewpoint discrimination. And the Supreme Court looks down on that very strongly and has ruled strongly over the years against that. So even the liberal justices, except for Ketanji Brown Jackson, got it right this time.
Now, there's a phrase, and I have it here: conversion therapy. It's not one of your favorites. You consider that a little misleading. Kind of define that, if you will, and why is it misleading?
Well, the problem with the phrase conversion therapy is that there is no therapeutic method or technique that is conversion therapy. It's kind of a catch-all term that means everything and nothing. So people use it to mean, your pastor told you you shouldn't be gay, or your grandma said this is, against the Bible. Or it's also used to refer to techniques that psychiatrists used back in the 50s and 60s that aren't used anymore, electric shock therapy, aversive techniques. And then too, a lot of people associate this with forcing somebody to try to change, or shaming somebody into changing. And that is not ethical therapy. So what we talk about is ethical therapy that helps a client live according to their values and their beliefs. And that's typical in counseling. Usually the client comes in and says, here's the issue I'm dealing with. Here's what I'm struggling with. Can you help me with this? And a good therapist won't say, well, I can help you 100%, I'm going to change you from gay to straight. That's not going to happen. They're going to say, well, let's explore issues. And I think I can help you with this issue. And so they'll look at a person's past. A lot of people struggling with homosexuality and transgenderism have sexual abuse in their past, early exposure to sex or pornography. There's sometimes relationship issues with parents or their same-sex peer group. Sometimes there's distorted thinking. So a counselor just simply talks to you about things and then helps you along the way to resolve some of these issues, maybe change your thinking, challenge your thinking, and then move towards the goals that you want as the client. And this law forbade that. It was so much pushing the LGBT agenda and ideology that you couldn't do that with a client. You couldn't even if they knew that there were some underlying issues, a counselor could not explore those with a client under these therapy bans.
Culture and policy analyst Jeff Johnston with us from Focus on the Family. Jeff just threw me a softball. By the way, if maybe you need someone that needs counseling, you can do that with 1-800-A-FAMILY. That's 1-800-232-6459, or you can find out more at focusonthefamily.com. All right, encouragement, Jeff, for parents now. Maybe have a son or daughter that's wrestling with this, the future. How about some encouragement for them? I think you've given us a ton. How about a little more?
Well, we know that there's been a huge spike in young people, especially young girls, pre-adolescent, adolescent, teen girls who are identifying as something other than female. They're identifying as something other than their biological sex, or they're saying, I'm part of the LGBT community. One recent survey showed that 20 some percent of Gen Z adults were identifying as something other than their biological sex or as heterosexual. So there's been a huge spike in people identifying as young people identifying as LG, B, or T. And this decision helps parents realize, hey, I can get help out there. I can talk to a Christian counselor. And even if my child doesn't want to change, because you can't force someone to change. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but it's impossible. Sometimes, it's hard enough to change ourselves without trying to force somebody else to change. But what a counselor can do at that point is say, well, let's talk to the parents and let's talk about your relationship and the relationship with your child and bring the child in for some of those discussions. So it does give parents new outlets to seek counseling with licensed clinical counselors in states where this has been banned for a while.
Yes, I've tried to change. I have 3 sons, and that's why I have gray in the beard and in the hair. So you are totally you're on target there. And most parents would say yes, absolutely. Jeff Johnston, Focus on the Family, Culture and Policy Analyst. We got to go here in just a second, Jeff. What's next for you? What else you working on over there?
Well, I'm working on a story right now about states that are expanding safe haven laws and expanding the amount of baby boxes they have in their state. Safe haven laws allow a mother who's in crisis to drop off her baby at a hospital or a fire station without being charged with child abandonment. And there's 10 or 15 states right now that have legislation moving forward that is going to expand those laws by allowing more time for a mother or expanding the number of baby boxes in the states. And so we're happy about that because more than 5,000 children have been saved through these laws. And the fact that, and even liberal states are passing laws to expand these. This is a really bipartisan issue to save babies. And so it's exciting to see that pro-life venture move forward. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Love it. Jeff Johnston, Focus on the Family, and you can go to focusonthefamily.com. As I mentioned earlier about counseling, give them a call at 800-A-FAMILY, 800-232-6459. Jeff, we got to have you back. What a great guest, and thanks for just having the muscle, the chops to communicate it on a layman's level. Thank you very much, and for taking us forward. Jeff Johnston, Culture and Policy Analyst at Focus. Hey, what a great guest. Another conversation coming up next week on the show. So join us. It is Faith Talk today. Until then, I'm Rick Probst. See you.